The Paper Mario Thousand Year Door credits are really interesting, and not just because of who is in them, but for who isn't. There is practically an entire development team missing, and so the question becomes, what are these people missing from the Thousand Year Door credits working on? A bit of background first up. Regular viewers of this channel will likely have seen my previous deep dive into the credits of Intelligent Systems, in which we established a few key things. Firstly, we worked out that the Fire Emblem and Paper Mario teams at Developers Intelligent Systems are to a large degree completely independent of each other. We also figured out that the WarioWare team were largely formed from Paper Mario employees. Therefore, from the perspective of forecasting, we could say that the likelihood of Fire Emblem titles coming in any given year is largely independent of Paper Mario. But you could expect WarioWare games to follow Paper Mario games in the lull between one project and the next. That's definitely what we've seen so far, with Paper Mario titles trickling out like clockwork every 4 years, and most WarioWare titles coming in the in-between years. However, the pattern was broken by the arrival of 2 WarioWares in recent years. My assumption was that the Thousand Year Door, being a remake, was a less intensive project than the Origami King, at least with some members of the staff not being needed quite so intensively, and so to keep their teams busy, Intelligent Systems fit in another WarioWare game alongside. In essence, one completely new Paper Mario title in the Origami King equals the Thousand Year Door plus another WarioWare game on the side. I felt then, and still feel, that this assumption made a lot of sense, but now I can safely say that it was wrong. For one thing, the team sizes of the Thousand Year Door and the Origami King are barely any different. The Origami King had about 400 names and people credited, and the Thousand Year Door has only very slightly less. Remember also that the Thousand Year Door credits do not include the original staff except as a generic thank you to the whole group at the end. Something that's a consistent Nintendo policy, although one I personally think is the wrong choice, but that's really a whole separate video. Still, if both teams constitute about 400 staff or support company credits, what would you expect the crossover of those people to be? Well, first of all, let's note that all these people are not necessarily Intelligent Systems employees. In fact, they're definitely not. Intelligent Systems in 2024 said they had 197 employees, so to support their work, they contract in a number of other studios, notably Toze, and in some respects you might expect different people to be brought in to support the Thousand Year Door as opposed to the Origami King. After all, you wouldn't expect more senior and more expensive people to be supporting a like-for-like remake or remaster, or whatever you want to call it, of an older game compared to something completely original. Still, while about 130 Color Splash employees made the paper aeroplane trip to Origami King, only about 80 Origami King staff made the jump to the Thousand Year Door. Now you might say 80 out of 200 sounds about right for the proportion of Intelligent Systems staff dedicated to Paper Mario, but that also includes Nintendo people and others. A quite major change is also the apparent absence of Kensuke Tanabe, who received a special thanks credit but nothing else. Tanabe-san has been Nintendo's lead producer on Paper Mario for a long time, and one might have assumed, and I've seen people assuming exactly this on various boards, that his second-in-command, Risa Tabata, might be stepping up to helm the franchise. That does not appear to be the case though. Instead, the director of the first 3 Paper Mario titles, Ryota Kawade, returned as the game's supervisor, while Risa Tabata was listed as just one of the producers alongside others such as Nintendo's Shinya Saito, who has been producing ever more external game collaborations in recent years, including, I've got to say, now in every new game released in the last 9 months. Does the absence of Tanabe-san outside of a special thanks credit presage his exit from the franchise? Perhaps, if nothing else, he's 61 and also supervises a number of mega franchises for Nintendo, such as Luigi's Mansion and Metroid Prime, so as games in those properties become ever larger and more complex, it's possible to imagine him focusing his time on those, with his assistant producer Risa Tabata stepping up. Then again, Tabata-san seems to be sticking more with project management roles, not just on Intelligent Systems games, but other Tanabe-developed titles like Mario Strikers Battle League and Metroid Prime Remastered, and it's not completely clear that her history, which has almost always been as a producer or coordinator, would be a good fit to supersede Kensuke Tanabe, who has a background in game directing, course design, map design, scenario writing, script support, and game supervision, going back to his time as a director for Doki Doki Panic, the title that was released in the West as Super Mario Bros. 2. As much as Nintendo have deep respect for intelligent systems, it feels unlike them to leave them entirely alone without a major creative voice from the core Nintendo team guiding their hand. So I think it's likely that Kensuke Tanabe will return to the producer's chair for the next Paper Mario game, which we can anticipate will release maybe around 2028, as long as he remains at the company, of course. Still, the changes go a lot deeper. Comparing the credits for the Origami King to the Thousand Year Door, it's clear that whole departments have more or less virtually gone missing. Now, not all of these will be completely surprising if you consider the logistics of a remake as opposed to a new title. The level design department is almost completely missing in action, so too the event design team. 3 of the 4 art leads from the Origami King have not made the cut, and the art department generally is decimated. And this includes regular art, UI art, technical art, the animation team, the visual effects crew, most of the lighting team, a good chunk of the environmental effects crew, and a good portion of the scripters. The thing is, a lot of these are actually quite senior people. A dozen or so worked on WarioWare Move It, 10 of the missing people received credits on Fire Emblem Engage, but the vast majority of these people are in the wind. Now, I don't think Intelligent Systems has let go of its most senior figures. I might have expected them to be working on the Thousand Year Door, even with a special thanks role while they did other development work in the background, but the complete absence of so many people makes me think they may be doing something else. And if so, what? A logical thought would be that they have been dragooned to work on the next Fire Emblem. This is quite possible. Engage and Three Houses largely had separate teams, and while Three Houses did rely on a lot of development support from Koei Tecmo, they also needed heavy Intelligent Systems resources as well. The next mainline Fire Emblem for the new console is likely to be a very big deal given the outsized success of Three Houses on Switch, so bringing some top talent over to help does make sense. But historically, the Fire Emblem and Paper Mario teams have seen relatively little cross-pollination. It's not impossible this is what happened to them, and it's decently likely under the circumstances, but it's not the only possibility. After all, taking level design, event design, art and scripting together, you basically have the skeleton team of what could be a whole new game. A game that has been developed by the Paper Mario team, quite aside from the Thousand Year Door. And I should note that we've seen this recently with another Nintendo partner studio. Goodfield developed their own independent game alongside Princess Peach Showtime. Have the Paper Mario team similarly split? Could there be another Paper Mario title? I don't think that's likely, or at least not a mainline one. The Thousand Year Door fits the 4 yearly schedule Nintendo has for the franchise, but they've also been very diligent in polling people to examine the success or otherwise of the game's original characters and story. It's true that Nintendo does polling quite often, and knowing that there are fans who work at Nintendo, it's possible that someone, in their marketing department somewhere or other, decided to take the opportunity to make a point to Nintendo that their decisions over the recent decade or so to downplay originality in Paper Mario titles was wrong by putting polls like this in the field. In this case, Nintendo could be working on another Paper Mario for early in the lifespan of the new system, and this would probably not be one that takes on board the lessons of the Thousand Year Door, but will be much more in keeping with Color Splash or the Origami King. Still, I can only hope that's not the case, because given the apparently positive reception of the Thousand Year Door, it would be a real shame to backstep. At the time of writing, we know the Thousand Year Door's sales outstripped the Origami Kings in Japan at comparable times. Both games released at odd periods, the Origami King in the early days of the pandemic, when games were thin on the ground, and was the first title to launch after Animal Crossing New Horizons, while the Thousand Year Door is perhaps the most significant title of 2024 so far, despite not even being an original game. Usually one would expect digital sales to trend up over time, and therefore the Thousand Year Door sales would theoretically be even larger than the Origami Kings were 4 years ago, but given the Origami King's release date in the middle of a pandemic, I'm not sure that assumption is safe. Nevertheless, I have every confidence that the Thousand Year Door will become a very successful one for the company, and I'm reasonably optimistic that this could herald a new era of more creatively ambitious Paper Mario projects. So, if they're not working on the next mainline Paper Mario, what are these Intelligent Systems Supremos developing? Because it seems to me there is a 30% chance that we will see an Intelligent Systems title released by the end of 2027 beyond the usual WarioWare, Fire Emblem and mainline Paper Mario. It's a Nintendo forecast video, so you'd all be disappointed by now if I didn't mention another Intelligent Systems franchise, the mighty and wonderful Advance Wars. Still, while this would be an absolute dream scenario if they were working on a new Advance Wars, given the reception of Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp was about as cold as a Mother 3 translation question at a Nintendo Investor Q&A, I don't think a new Advance Wars is on the cards anytime soon. There's also push mode, but this is a mighty big and well-qualified team to sink into a push mode title, unless it's, I don't know, an open-air epic version of push mode, which would be interesting. There's also every chance that Intelligent Systems could take on an original IP. Nintendo stated in its 2024 corporate governance report, "We have been developing new intellectual property, and Intelligent Systems is a long-time partner of theirs and would be in an ideal place to try out something new." It's been a long time since Intelligent Systems have stretched their wings like this, but not unprecedented. They worked on Daigasso Band Brothers in 2013 and Codename Steam in 2015, both for the 3DS. The 3DS allowed for smaller scale experimental titles in a way the more resource-intensive development landscape of the Switch, let alone the Switch successor, really don't, but nevertheless it would make sense for Intelligent Systems to want to shake themselves up a bit after a long stint alternating between Fire Emblem, Paper Mario, and WarioWare. Of course, they could also be assigned any number of wayward Nintendo IPs, from Dylan's Rolling Western, also of Kensuke Tanabe's stable of games, to the late Mario & Luigi RPG series, which would in many ways be a natural fit for the team since they already work in the Mario RPG space. Then again, Nintendo have shown an interest in spinning off key characters with Princess Peach Showtime, so what's to stop them doing a game that's not a mainline Paper Mario, but which features a side character, Paper Princess Peach perhaps? Generally, Nintendo would wait for the dust to settle on one of their experimental titles before commissioning another, and the timing doesn't really add up with Princess Peach Showtime only releasing in March 2024, but then again, if they had strong evidence about a positive reception to Peach's character in the Super Mario Bros. Movie back in early 2023, it's not impossible that they could have bit the bullet, taken a risk, and commissioned an Intelligent Systems Peach title at that point, as well as Princess Peach's Showtime. After all, expanding the audience of gamers is a big focus for them, and in particular getting young girls excited about video games is going to be a big win for them long term if they can pull it off. Doing a Mario spin-off title isn't exactly a huge risk, even if Princess Peach Showtime didn't exactly light the world on fire. It crossed the 1 million threshold in a few days, and I'm sure that the development costs weren't all that massive since, as I mentioned, developers Goodfeel had another major title release alongside. It's conceivable to me that they want a steady cadence of Peach projects for the next few years to see if they can nudge the character more strongly into the spotlight. After all, Minnie Mouse is huge for Disney, almost to the same degree that Mickey is. Of course, I can't say for sure that there is a new title on the horizon. It has to be likeliest that these people are just doing deep development work or experimental work, or they've been reassigned to other projects that just haven't seen daylight yet. It's even possible that they've moved on from the company entirely. But I'm going to keep a very close eye on announcements from Intelligent Systems in the next couple of years, because it seems to me there is a dev team shaped hole at the company, and maybe, just maybe, they're cooking up something awesome for us. For more context, you may want to check out my original Intelligent Systems video, which is on the screen right now. I've also got a few Paper Mario videos you might want to check out, also on the screen. As ever, thank you to everybody for watching, and I will see you next time for another Nintendo Forecast.